your body is literally every single day doing its best to make you the most optimal human being you can be. So, you know, kind of stop getting in its way. Thank you for having me.
No problem. So tell us a little bit about you and where your journey and how you've gotten to be where you are and what you have going on.
So my name's Divone. I am a personal trainer, yoga teacher, and nutrition coach, and I run Divone Wellness, which is my, you know, self-branded wellness business. I provide those services to people essentially anywhere from late teens all the way up through senior citizens. So I've become really passionate through my journey about eliminating diet culture from the health and wellness world and really being an advocate for body positivity and healthy living without the parameters of a quote-unquote diet or plan, if you will. I ended up starting my journey at 19 years old. I lost 100 pounds, and I have, up until this point, kept most of it off with the exception of getting pregnant and doing that whole thing for about 10 years now. So that, for me, really led me down a path of disordered eating, and, you know, I've lived what I'm trying to coach people out of. So for me, I've really taken my life experiences, put them down on paper, worked through the emotions of it all, serious therapy, and really just kind of trying to bring that energy to the health and wellness space where it's so infiltrated with toxicity. So for me, that's really just been what I'm passionate about and what I'm trying to put out into the world and manifest and bring it back.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. As far as diving into all of that and the elimination of that toxicity of diet culture, what was your first step on that mission? How did you approach that?
Wow. So for me, the realization that there was something wrong with the way I was going about losing weight and becoming healthy, as I tried to call it, I really used dedication and commitment in an outward way to show that what I was doing was for the health benefit. You know, I was eating this way because I was trying to be healthy, and I was trying to, you know, lose weight because I was in a very high risk obesity category. So there was a need for me to go through a weight loss journey from a medical standpoint and from a, you know, actual health perspective standpoint. I took it, you know, way too far. So the first step for me was realizing that those excuses and those labels were incorrect. You know, eating small portions wasn't so that I was losing weight. It was because I knew I could control that, and ended up being a control factor, which is, you know, the basis of really any eating disorder or any type of compulsion that one might develop. So for me, again, like that first step of just realizing, okay, you're lying to yourself and you're lying to everyone around you. And that was huge and emotional and uncomfortable to sit with, because I had done it at that point for, you know, close to 3 or 4 years of really just convincing the people around me that this was my new normal, as I tried to say.
Mm-hmm. That perspective works directly into lifestyle management as well. I think that a lot of people don't look at weight loss and diet or weight gain, whatever it may be that they're looking to accomplish when it comes to food, as a lifestyle thing.
So how do you approach if someone comes to you that needs to lose that 100 pounds? What's your first piece of advice for them?
So that my first piece of advice, and the first thing I tell anybody who I meet with in terms of actually looking for weight loss for a health reason, is you have to meet them where they are on their journey, because it's, you know, we're inundated with this diet culture toxicity from a very young age. So, you know, you see these magazines, and now I guess you can relate it to Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Twitter and whatnot, all of these different labels and taglines, and, you know, the flat tummy teas and the, you know, 30 days to fit, all these different verbiages that really just continue to perpetuate the fact that, like, okay, in order to be loved, in order to be worthy, I need to be skinny. Mm-hmm. And so for me, whenever I meet with somebody who actually needs to lose the weight, I let them know, listen, this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And the reason I say that is because you can, by doing all of these terrible things for your body, the diet pills, the wraps, the, all of those other things that are out there, you can probably lose let's say 100 pounds is the metric, in a short period of time if you tried. But the fact of the matter is, from a science perspective, it's much easier to put that weight back on, but doing it that way. So marathon, not a sprint, and you want something that's going to be sustainable. So if you're not losing the weight in a sustainable way, you're not going to be able to keep it off. And that's really the thing that I try and preach the most to people who are actually looking at this from okay, I need to lose, whether it be 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 pounds.
Absolutely.
A lot of the time I find people are like, okay, well, if I have a salad while everybody else is having pizza, then I'm not going to want the pizza. Of course you're going to want the pizza. It's right there. So instead of eating double calories from salad and a pizza, just have the pizza. Make peace with it. You had pizza, okay, you move on. And a lot of the times, once you're able to flip that script, you don't go in and have 4 slices of pizza in one sitting, because okay, I'm allowed to have this. Maybe I'll want pizza again tomorrow, and that's fine.
It's okay, yeah.
So I'm only gonna have 1 slice because now I'm full. I don't need any more. So it really allows you to have that power and that freedom to say, it's okay that I'm eating this, or it's okay that I want to have a drink right now, or it's okay that I want to have a piece of candy right now. And even if it's not quote unquote okay, in the sense that, it might be deterring you from your end goal. Your end goal is to live a healthy and satisfied life. And, at any weight. So if it's a health aspect, and again, to relate it back to your question of, if somebody really does have to lose 100 pounds, I approach it from a science perspective.
Okay.
And it depends on the person, because some people can get really attached to the counting of the calories and the numbers, and it can translate into that disordered eating, which is why I tell people who are in that space to work with a coach. Because the more you work with a coach, and this goes for anything, just the more accountable you're going to be.
Yeah.
If you're running a business and you have a business coach, or you're, any type of coaching is good for accountability. So when it comes to health coaching, if you're able to sit down with somebody and say, okay, this is what I ate, this is why I ate it, and, have that open dialogue about it, it loses its sense of this can be a control in secret, and, really just kind of feed into that disordered eating.
So when you say that if you want to have the pizza, it's okay to have the pizza, where do you start to, draw the line for yourself? How do you go about saying, okay, well, now I've had pizza 3 times this week.
Right.
Now I'm backing away from my goal, and I'm taking steps backwards. How do you manage that?
So a lot of the times it isn't even so much about the pizza, right? It's more about what's going on maybe with a stress factor in your life. Like there's a deadline at work, or the kids are, going through something, or you're fighting with your husband, whatever the case is in terms of a stress situation. That's a huge part of why. And again, that comes back to working with a coach. Okay, I see here that you've eaten pizza 3 times this week. We've talked about foods that are helpful towards your goals and foods that are going to set you back away from your goals. What's going on in your life that your choices are leading you to foods that are going to push you away from your goals. And it's not so much in a negative sense, like I said, because the goal is to live a healthy, balanced, satisfied life. So, okay, clearly there's something going on here. Pizza 3 times a week, that's a coping mechanism. What's going on? Let's find the cause and the root cause of that issue. And sometimes people have a hard time even looking within themselves and being able to articulate that.
Yeah.
So, those leading kind of discovery questions of, okay, I always kind of ask, what's going on with your family? What's going on with work? What's going on with, how are you feeling? I do daily trackers with my clients, and it's not even related to food. Every so often there'll be a client where I'm like, something's not going the way we want it to go. Let's look at the food diary. But for the most part, I don't have people track their food. You have a daily tracker if you work with me, and we track, your sleep, your steps, your water, and your mood. And for me, that's such a great indicator of what's going on with your food, because we're, everybody's an emotional eater, whether you want to admit it or not. If you're emotional, you might not eat. Some people eat when they're emotional. So there's always that. Most people fall into that category. I've found very, very few people who don't eat when they're stressed.
It's funny because I feel like that's a common thing that people say, oh, I can't eat, I'm too stressed. And
I think
you
it depends
that's
on the
something
stress.
that everyone does, and sometimes you feel like you're the different one. Like,
Yeah.
well,
What does that mean?
I don't know what that feels like.
Yeah, like I don't know what it feels like to not be able to eat when I'm stressed. Like, all
Yeah.
I want to do is shove food in my
Right.
face.
Yeah.
I
It
also
brings
feel
right
like
back
it
to
depends on the
type.
stress.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like I'm the type of person, like through finals in college, I would lose like 10 pounds because I was just like so stressed about tests and
Same
test
here,
anxiety,
yeah.
and even AP tests in high school I wouldn't eat.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, relationship stress, you know, grief and mourning and like through deaths in the family and stuff, that's when I eat.
Okay.
So being able to recognize that is something that, you know, is really important. And again, brings us back to, okay, you've eaten the pizza 3 times a week. Let's figure out why.
Right.
Not like you shouldn't be eating pizza 3 times a week. At the crux of most people, you understand that you should not be eating pizza 3 times a week. Let's figure out why you're doing it and why you continue to go in and make that choice. Because for a lot of people, it's not anything related to the food.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's definitely a new view that people are developing now. I learned that too, going through health coaching school, that you need to look at the whole circle of your life, and that's everything: your career, your relationships, your...
And for women especially, your time of the month.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's so much. I've become so interested in learning about how, you know, like from a science perspective, I know the hormones and I know the, you know, the graph and the chart and all that different stuff, but there's so little research about how we as women actually go through our monthly life, because so much of society is based off this 24-hour clock.
Yeah.
Okay, wake up, eat breakfast, you know, do all these things, because the male society is a 24-hour time clock, whereas we work on a, you know, whatever it is, 28 to 32 day cycle.
yeah.
Right. So, you know, and even with exercise, you know, some weeks in your cycle might be perfect for those like hard hitting hot yoga classes or HIIT workouts or, you know, long runs. And then other weeks in your cycle, your body's not going to respond to that.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing too that I found with working with women, is being able to figure out when their cycle is, because that's going to affect, as I'm sure you guys know, the way you eat. You know, I'm, for one, get that like bottomless pit moment right before I start my cycle, where no matter what you give me, I'm still hungry.
Yeah.
If I'm not aware of the fact that it's coming and I start eating like a ton, I'll be like,
What's happening?
that's coming.
Yeah, one time I cried like over a Toyota commercial. And I'm like, I woke up the next morning and I'm like, oh, that's why.
Everything makes sense the next day.
Like, I understand now. That makes perfect sense.
Right, so I've been trying to do a lot of research and become educated. I can't say that I'm necessarily there yet, but just being a woman and, you know, having a sister and having a mom and having friends and being able to kind of observe what goes on through each of our cycles and the way that we can sync up with people that we're close to.
That's so interesting.
It's so strange.
Yeah.
You know, linking up even with the full moon, if you're somebody who's linked with the moon, like, so there's a lot of studies and research and just different women writing down their experiences that I've become super interested in trying to figure out how that can help my clients and help the world, you know, just one more voice expressing all these different things, because there's really it's not mainstream.
Yeah.
Right? So we don't see it.
Right.
Your body is literally every single day doing its best to make you the most optimal human being you can be. So, you know, kind of stop getting in its way.
I think that that's a key concept that can be brought into so many different areas of life as well. Going through any sort of transition, needing to bring it back to yourself and really listen to your heart and listen to what your body is telling you. I just thinking of an example, when you approach someone and they're off-putting and you feel that energy and it's wrong and you're not comfortable, leave.
Right, like you are not a tree.
Yeah, like you can get up and go. That's your body recognizing what's happening in your space. Get up and leave and be able to recognize that it's okay to do that. You're not stuck. And that carries over into so many different areas of life. Being able to remember that you're never stuck. It's never, this is it.
Oh my God, you're speaking to my soul right now. I'm going through such a massive life decision right now in my own personal life, and I'm feeling torn in so many different directions, and what you're saying is just resonating so much with me right now. Like, just go. If it doesn't feel right, just go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to know how to make those decisions, and I think that's the hardest thing to
It's
learn
so
as
hard,
you
yeah.
become an adult. I was saying this yesterday. I think that when you're a kid, you just have this vision of being an adult, and you want it to be everything you ever imagined it would be as a child, and adults are so cool and they get to do whatever they want, and I want to do whatever I want. And then you become an adult and you're like, I just want somebody to tell me what to
what am
do.
I supposed to do?
How do I do this adult thing? And it's being able to grow with yourself through all those chapters of life and recognize that this is your show. This is not a dress rehearsal. This is it.
Yes.
This is your life. Yep. Wake up and do it.
I say to my clients all the time, like, you're the main character.
Yes.
This is, you're you. Yep. Anybody else who comes is just a side character, a little chapter, a little sentence in your story. Like, you are the whole book.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and like, you truly have the power to decide what that book looks like.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think this whole thing speaks to what we're really trying to do here is do whatever we can to get people through changes. And when you're at a point in your life where you are at a crossroads, you can either go this way or that way, or maybe there's 10 different ways you can go. There really are infinite ways that you can go in every situation.
And I think that's sometimes the scariest part.
Yeah.
Is that it's not just, okay, do I do A or do I do B?
Right.
It's like, well, okay, well, if I do A, it's going to open up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 options. And then if I do B, it's another couple of options. And then each one branches off from there. And it's just, who knows?
Yeah, you have to, I think, take recognition of the fact that it's all about being aligned with your vision of what you really want. And it's okay if that's changing pretty regularly, because
every day, hour to hour, it could change.
Yeah,
right.
But
listen.
Yeah, listen to whatever it is that your mind is telling you, and recognize it and sit with it and dissect it piece by piece, so that you can get to whatever the proper next step is to be where you want to be where you need to be, and be able to serve the way you need to serve for the communities that you're influencing and the people that you're around and the relationships that you have. It's so important. I don't know. It's just like, I feel like so many people are waking up during this time too, right now. Like,
yes.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Going through a global pandemic, and everyone just being around and being able to have conversations with their spouses that maybe they couldn't before because you're both working so much, or being able to see your kids in a new light because they're home with you all day, every day, or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. It's different, and we're all learning how to navigate this together. So
I agree. I think this whole, experience, especially over the past few months now, has shone a light on the decisions that we make as people. And I think a lot of people are really prioritizing differently after, like you say, being home with their spouse and being able to have these different conversations and spending time with their kids, or just spending time alone, and really kind of, I think that hustle mentality of grind is slowly becoming a bit of a thing in the past, and people are recognizing that it's okay to slow down. It's okay to be present and take notes and reflect and refresh and renew and all those different things, and then be able to go and act. I think especially even from my own experience, I was one of those people who just like nose to the ground and just like grind it out, do what you got to do, get it done. And my whole life was put on pause. In a day. I walked into work one morning, and that afternoon they were like, okay, see you later.
Yep.
And for me, I had just come back to work from a 12-week maternity leave where I was already forced to slow down. So for me, I've had it, much longer than most people who have been in this, quarantine life right now. And it's totally changed my outlook and my goals and my vision and all these other things. And it's, now that we're slowly starting to reopen, I feel that I don't want to fall into those habits that I was in before. So I'm trying so hard to be mindful of that slowness and that ease of just life that existed for me. And I know it was not the same experience for a lot of people. I don't want to discredit that. A lot of people, went hungry and didn't have homes and all these different things that were horrific, and people died. But, my small little sliver of the world, it was blissful. It was really just kind of me and my husband and my baby, and we've looked at it now as a way of like, this life that we're inevitably going to get back to, and this schedule and these responsibilities and whatnot has made us realize maybe this is something we want to revisit as, you know, where our priorities lie. So, you know, and that's, it just kind of is all, like you said, it all lays into itself in terms of listening to what your body wants and your heart and your mind and your soul, and then being able to act on it.
The world right now is just it's so strange. Nobody knows how to do this whole pandemic thing. It's like,
no, and then, you know, a massive civil rights movement on top of that, which is just like brokenhearted across the board. It's hit me, you know, I think harder now, you know, especially in regards to, you know, the civil rights movement that's happening right now as a mom. Previously, when these types of situations would occur, I wasn't a parent. Not that I wasn't sensitive to it or that, you know, it was kind of swept under the rug, but as a mother, looking at what's going on in the world right now, it's completely opened my eyes to a different level of passion and fight and, you know, just real unrest in my soul with everything that's happening. And it's emotionally taken quite a toll because, you know, I am a white woman and I come from, you know, a long line of white families. And there's, you know, I'm not proud to say that I come from a family who definitely have racial, you know, racist tendencies. And I'm, you know, grateful that my sister and I are of the age that we're having those hard conversations with our parents. Like, that's not okay. And, you know, it's difficult, but it's necessary. So, you know, and that too is, again, listening to your heart and your soul and your mind and acting on it, because previously, you know, it was just kind of a, you know, it's their generation, they're old. And now I'm like, you know what, I don't care.
I don't care how old
I don't care how old you are. You're still a human. You still live in this world. You need to change. And that's been...
I come from the same kind of background.
Right.
Exactly kind of
so, you know, it's definitely been difficult conversations upon difficult conversations with people who have been, you know, ingrained in their way of living for 50, 60 years. So it's been, you know, emotionally heavy, as I'm sure it is for a lot of people. And what I'm feeling barely scrapes the surface of what others feel. So
I just think like as a mom, to bring it back to that point, it's a whole different level of responsibility, because not only are you responsible for that person staying alive every day and, like, you know, taking care of them, that's enough on its own, but now all of this is happening in their world, in our world, and we're responsible to shape their mindset around it. As mothers, you have to answer these questions and explain these things, and we're experiencing this for ourselves and trying to, like, piece it together and say the right stuff to our kids is just, it's very overwhelming.
And to be a generation that didn't have parents that talked about it.
You don't have anyone to turn to.
An example. I mean, not even just the social movement going on right now. Like, there's so many
just in general
discussions I've had with my parents that their parents didn't talk to them about this stuff. They didn't talk to me about it. I'm talking to them about it.
Just recognizing emotions. I feel like, you know, especially, you know, and we're all pretty much the same age, so I assume our parents are of the same age. Like, my parents never would come to me and say, you know, like, oh, well, how are you feeling about it? What are your emotions? No. It was just like, this is my house, and this is what I'm saying, and this is what's going on. And granted, you know, I'm not at the point where my kid is, you know, in that combative type of space as an infant, but I look back at my upbringing, and I remember being emotionally unwell and not having... And granted, my parents did as much as they could with the information that they had and the skills that they had to raise us, and, you know, we ended up all right. We ended up all right. We're here, we graduated college, and the whole thing. But there was none of that level of, I feel like, interpersonal communication in regards to parenting that there is now. And recognizing these little people that were, like you say, responsible for shaping their world, and looking at them as human beings with emotions. It's, no, this is what we're doing right now, this is how you have to feel. Deal with it.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is very effective in early adult life and maybe even carried on in later adulthood. But when it comes to facing your childhood traumas and recognizing what those things that you experienced throughout your childhood are doing to you now as an adult, and then trying not to pass that on to your kids once you have kids, it's a lot.
Recognizing childhood trauma, and it's, you know, a lot of the times that's why people are eating the pizza. You know, they had to see their mom, and that brought up a whole bunch of garbage that they have to now deal with. Or, you know, they had a triggering conversation with a parent or a sibling or a spouse, and like there's a lot that if you don't have your emotions seen, heard, and validated, it's going to lead you down like a domino effect or a spiral of negativity. And I think, you know, as a moldable little human that these kids and these, you know, young adolescents are, if we're not there to say, you know, you're seen, you're heard, you're validated, the emotions that you're feeling are just, then, you know, it just leads to more and more generational trauma upon generational trauma. Well, I think that's in large part, like what that generation kind of was built on, like just like sweep it kind of under the rug, show face, be strong, and just get it done.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, in the same thing, like with my father, not an emotional man, crying or otherwise, and not a very like physically affectionate person either. And one day I think I remember so vividly my mom telling my dad to hug me, because I guess she had recognized that it had been like too long since he had hugged me, and it made me emotional just to share energy and share space with him, because it was so infrequent.
Right.
And I remember it being like an uncomfortable situation, because I was young. I couldn't articulate why it made me emotional. Now, in hindsight, I can recognize that it was just like, you know, the shared energy with him that made me emotional. But it was such a testament to that. Like, it's just, I think that, that generational trauma that we're now trying to decipher and unpack is that, you know, that generation was just so blinders on. I had a conversation with a friend of mine who's, you know, same age-ish, and parents are in the same age group, and they, you know, to have those unearthing emotional conversations is so difficult on their end to say, this is how I'm feeling. Either you've made me feel this way, or a scenario made me feel this way. And, you know, even just self-validating their emotions is difficult, I find, for them. And, you know, like I was telling you guys earlier, I don't remember if we actually ended up getting it, but, you know, my mom ended up having a panic attack yesterday in Sam's Club. And my entire family suffers with anxiety and panic attacks. And, you know, like I've gone through massive therapy for it, and my mom has not. And I sat with her in the car and I said, Mom, recognize what's happening. You've moved past the panic attack at this point, right? Like we've, you know, the hyperventilating is gone, whatever the physical reaction is gone. But like, okay, what got you here? Like, let's unearth it. Let's have the conversation. And even just that was so difficult. And I find that when I work with, you know, that age group, that generation of, even like from a nutrition coaching standpoint, and even from a yoga perspective, because, you know, yoga makes you kind of get up to that uncomfortable wall of your emotion and look at it and sit with it and be uncomfortable. And we bring up all of these emotions through physical asana. And I find that I can sense the energy of this age group of people pulling back. Yeah. You know, if we're like in a pigeon pose, which is such an emotional hip opener, I find that generation very much tends to be the one who's wiggly and moving, because it's hard for them to sit and be with that experience that they're experiencing. So I don't know, I think I just, you know, I find so much that same theme just keeps coming back up with, you know, whether it be, I guess it's 2 generations above. 2 generations, and it's hard for them to really, and I'm not sure, based off of, you know, their path in life and world history and that's gone on around them, that really kind of breeds that. You know, I hope that we as a generation can start to really unpack that and not pass that on to our kids.
Right. Yeah.
I think we're doing like, even just this is, I feel like, so much more than what they would have done in terms of recognizing their stuff.
They didn't have any sort of platform like this. They didn't have people that were offering them a space to have those emotions. It just wasn't a thing. It just didn't exist. And just the fact that we're, as a society in general, not even just us, giving people that space through things like yoga and these things that are now becoming so huge popular movements that really allow you to open up and talk about these emotions we have and be okay with it,
Right.
no matter what it is,
I
or
feel
why
like it's almost like as you start to, like, as a color wheel, right? Like, there's, like, red, and there's red, and there's yellow. I don't even, I'm, like, sounding so dumb right now. The colors.
All the colors.
Right, and then as you start to, like, I feel like that's also, too, such a huge difference is, like, so, we have happy, we have sad, we have angry, we have, excited. Let's just say those are, like, the four. And then there's so many more.
Right.
Yeah.
There's so much more. There's so many things around it. And, we're just scratching the surface of what is available to us in terms of an emotional spectrum.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's all about connecting yourself with the communities that speak to what you need at any given moment in life, and switching that up as you need to. Like, when I'm pregnant and I want to be around, like, other pregnant people and I want to talk about how, like, I didn't eat healthy for 2 weeks and all I want is, like, a McDonald's cheeseburger at 3 a.m. and a giant Coke. I don't even like soda. Like, what's happening to my body? Like, being able to recognize that.
That's so true.
Like, I literally don't ever eat. I literally, like, didn't eat that till I was pregnant. And one day I was just smelt it and was like, I need that. That's what my body needs right now.
You didn't even know how to identify it because you never ate it.
It's literally never.
I really thought everybody was lying when they said that that's how it happens. And then I got pregnant and I was like, what is that I needed?
Yes, it's so strange.
Or what is that I needed away from me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, just being able to be around like-minded people that are going through something similar. It's so important, and it helps you to elevate so much because you can work through your experiences with another lens. It's not just you have somebody there with you who's going through something similar and maybe has a different viewpoint and is feeling the other emotions that you're ignoring,
or has gone through it and can show you, like, tools and tips and tricks to get through it.
Yeah.
Right.
I also think just access, like, access to that community. There's so many different ways that we can be part of different communities.
I'm really curious about your ability to find joy in movement and how you teach that to others.
Wow, what a great question. I don't know if I can necessarily articulate where, for me, I just find joy in movement, and I think it's just something that's innate within me. Like, even if you ask my mom, when I was a kid, I would be in my car seat, my leg was always moving. I've always just been an on-the-go kid. Like, from the second I opened my eyes until the second I put my head on the pillow at night, I was going. There was no stopping me. I was always, whether it was running or jumping or playing or swinging or whatever, as a young person. And now, even as an adult, I struggle with a commute to work. It's so, I'm always that person, like, totally hardcore jamming in my car just for some movement. A desk job, I remember in college working a desk job just to, like, make extra money as a broke college kid. I think I referenced that quite a few times. Clearly, I was very broke in college. Working, like, a desk job over the summer, and, like, after 2 weeks I had to quit. I, like, physically could not sit in a desk for 8 hours a day.
It's so hard, especially when you first start. You're like, ow, my back, ow, my legs,
right?
Oh,
and even
my shoulders,
now,
I can't sit this long.
Through, the pandemic and I'm working from home right now, and it's just, like, all day in the chair and looking at the computer. I have to get up at, like, periodically and, like, just walk through my house or do a little yoga flow in my office. So for me, the joy through movement is when I feel most at home with myself, is when I'm moving. And that's, like, a big theme of, a couple years ago in my life, my best friend had moved out of state. She was the first one of my friends to move away permanently, like, not for college. And I went to visit her. She was up in Boston. Beautiful city. So excited for her. She had excellent opportunities. And I said to her, I was like, are you homesick? Like, how do you feel not being home? And she had said something so powerful, and it's years now stuck with me. You have to find home within yourself.
So true.
So true. And I think that really set me down a reflective kind of path of, like, okay, where do I feel most at home with myself? And the answer to that is always when I'm moving. Whether it's, like I said before, like, a really gritty yoga flow, or, like, just a restorative sense of movement, a walk down the block, just dancing in my kitchen while I'm waiting for the microwave. Like, anything like that movement for me is joy. So I think to get it through to others who don't necessarily find joy in movement, and their sense of joy comes from something else, is I really try and just be super authentic with what I'm teaching and be able to share that emotion of joy because I'm moving. So I feel like I'm able to translate that emotion through like the energy waves. You know, if you're, like I said before, if you're within that 10 feet of space with somebody, you're transferring energy. So I find that if I can arrive to that place of, okay, this is the joyous moment for me and this is what I live every day for, that's going to like so organically and authentically come through in my words, in my, you know, posture sequencing, and, you know, and like my music choice and the words that I say and the energy that I bring to the room. So for me, I like I said, I can't necessarily say there's any one moment that I realized movement was joy. It's just been my whole life.
That's amazing to know that that's who you are, and now be able to share that with other people. So if it is all about your energy, how do you go about protecting your energy to continue delivering that in the best of ways to all of your clients and everything that you're doing?
So I didn't realize that was a thing when I first started down this path of having to protect my own energy. I, you know, again, poured from an empty cup for a long, long time, and then had I don't want to say an uprising, that's the wrong word, like a revelation of sorts that, okay, I'm not feeling the same way and as passionate and as energized as I was about what I'm doing in the past, however long it was. So now that I've recognized, okay, I have to be able to protect my aura and protect my space, and then be able to become present and deliver and show up for each and every one of my clients. So I have a routine, I guess, like a morning routine, and every client kind of routine. So for me, I don't ever try and stack clients directly one on top of the other to allow their energies to kind of flow one into the other. I like to be able to approach each person with a clear mind, with a clean slate, and say, okay, I'm going to meet you where you are today. So for what that looks like for me is I always try and have like just really, really cold water. I don't know why it being really cold makes a difference for me, but I'm like, I go through ice cubes like a mad woman. Super, super cold water, and I try and really make sure that I'm super hydrated. I generally, if you work with me, I will have to pee halfway through our session, and that's just because I need the water to come and show up for you. So I like to do a lot of clean water. I'm big in like scents. So for me, like aromatherapy is huge. I always have like, this is a diffuser necklace. I have the same diffuser in my home. So there's a lot of, you know, essential oils that come into play. I really work off of the nature of the oils and what they promote. So I do a lot of peppermint, a lot of lemon, focus, concentration. And then at the beginning of every day, and this just kind of sets me up for a good day, is I light Palo Santo in my house. And I kind of go through and make sure all of the open surfaces to the world outside have been properly cleansed. My husband thinks I'm the most crunchy granola woman you'll ever meet in your whole life. And he's so the complete opposite, so he just laughs at me. But it works, and he doesn't believe it, but it works.
I feel like most of us end up that way when you're in that mind space when your spouse is just totally in the opposite.
Yeah, I'm just like, let me do it.
Do your witchy
It's not
stuff.
hurting you.
Yeah, it's not hurting you. Just let me live.
You. Let me do my witch stuff.
Yes, let me live. Let me light my sage, and let me be over here. So every morning I go around and I light it, and it's not like a big thing for me. Like I just literally light it and walk around the house, usually while my coffee is brewing. And like I said, I just, before every client, I try and take like a really big gulp of water, center myself. I try and close my eyes and take like at least 3 to 5 breaths with before I do anything. And that's not even just clients, but before I go into anything that I do, I always try and like put space in between what I was doing and what I am doing. Sure. And really being present with what I'm doing each and every part of the day. So, you know, 3 to 5 breaths, close my eyes, arrive in the moment, and then start the task of whatever that is, whether that's teaching a yoga class or training a client or working with a nutrition client, or showing up to dinner with my husband. Like for me, that's always been kind of how I've arrived in every part of my day, is just that clear, concise split from one to another. You know, I learned something in, I think it was like a sports psychology course back in college that was like, your brain physically cannot multitask
Yeah.
productively. Like, you can half concentrate on a bunch of different things, but in order for you to really be present, it's not possible. So I really took that to heart, and it's something that stayed with me for a while now. So to be able to separate doing and now is very important for me.
Yeah.
And I think it helps in the way that I show up for other people.
That's great. I think that that kind of reminds me of the negative connotations that are built around compartmentalization, and how so many people for so many generations have said, like, oh, like, that's not good, you're not showing your real self, blah, blah, blah. But I feel like it's so important to be able to do that and separate one thing from the next, separate one emotion that you're having with one person from the emotions you're having with the next person that you're speaking to. For me, that comes into my life every day with my kids. Like, if one of them's going nuts and pissing me off, I can't take that energy and bring it to the next person. And you need to be present for whoever it is that you're interacting with at any given point in time. So that's really something to be able to recognize that.
Right. And I think too, like you say, like, that negative connotation around compartmentalizing, like, it's not always negative.
It shouldn't be.
And I agree. I don't think it should be either. You know, there's a time and a place, and if you don't allow yourself to separate from those emotions, I feel like it's so hard to actually give them the space that they need. You know, you can't let them take up every part of every second of every day.
Yes.
It's not healthy, and it's not constructive to get to an end game or an end goal. You're just going to sit with that.
Yeah. It's just too overwhelming for the mind to do all those things at one time.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think in the society that we're in right now that is so time poor, as they say, you're expected to multitask. From the time that you are able to talk and move and physically do things, it's like ingrained in you that we don't have enough time in the day to do everything we need to do, so we need to do 10 things at once.
Yep.
And that's, like you said, not productive.
Right.
You can only do so much, and you just have to know how to prioritize and schedule and plan your day in a way that you can be productive with all of the things that you need to do.
Right. And I also think a lot of, you know, the world that we live in right now, you know, take the pandemic out of it, is there's I think an unrealistic expectation of ourselves and of others in terms of timelines to get things done, because we live in such a, you know, Google can get you a result in like under a second.
Yeah.
So the expectation is that we've all been able to advance our productivity to meet that, or, you know, obviously not realistically, but to get to such a high level of productivity, like, you're not going to be able to produce quality results with that. And it just, you know, and that's something that I bring into the conversation of, you know, whether it be weight loss or weight gain, or, you know, whatever it has to do with your nutrition marathon. You're not gonna run up the hill of getting things done, whether it be, you know, cleaning the house, losing the 10 pounds, or, you know, going to school. You're not gonna get it done in less time than it's actually going to take to do it right. Otherwise, you're going to have to do it again.
Right.
Right.
And I think that's an important thing to think about.
Right.
If you don't do it right, you have to redo it.
Do it again.
And then you're just wasting more time and being less efficient. So just do it right the first time. That's a constant teaching in my household, especially with kids. It's like, would you hire somebody to do half a job, child? No, you would not. If somebody came to your house and mowed half of your lawn, you wouldn't pay them now, would you?
Right.
So, are you going to finish that sink of dishes, or are you going to leave the rest of them there? Just things like that, ingraining that in children from a young age, I feel like it's important. So, teach people to do the right thing all the time. If you move forward with your life in that way, and you carry that through all of your interactions, then I think you'll put a lot of good out into the world.
Yeah. And that's it too, you know, I think putting good things out and good things will come back to you. Like, I'm a big law of attraction person. Like, if you're going to be able to just be okay with what you're giving and feel like you're hitting that standard for yourself and being realistic with the standard of who yourself is and what you can actually accomplish, what you want and what you desire will come circling back to you. And it took me a long time to actually believe what I was saying when I was saying that. You know, I watched the movie, I read the books, I did all the things, and I was like, okay, yeah, sure. But until I actually felt it, it didn't happen.
Yeah. It needs to be in your energy in order for you to be able to receive those things, I think.
100%.
So how do you carry that concept overall into your work with your clients? Like, how do you get people to slow down and realize these things, especially being New Yorkers? Like, everything is quick, quick. Like, I think that was the craziest thing. I worked in Manhattan for the 2 years that I worked in the corporate world after college, and really being able to be a part of that and see that at a boardroom table, people interrupting each other, talking over each other. It wasn't fast enough. You're got to be faster with this. Quick, 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 quick. It's all about speed. How in New York do you get people to slow down and sit with themselves and recognize their emotions and their needs in any given moment?
It's not easy. That is the biggest hurdle, believe it or not, and you'd believe it, of working with people, especially in this setting. We're so, connected to that. Just the fact of asking them to sit down for 30 minutes or 45 minutes and talk to me about their food and their behaviors and why they're feeling that way can sometimes be pulling teeth. But I start, any connection that I make with somebody, I always kind of set the expectation of, again, I don't like to always say weight loss because there are people who are looking to gain weight or just maintain a healthy lifestyle, but it resonates with the most people when you speak in regards to weight loss. So that's what I'll speak on. When you're talking to somebody about a weight loss journey, I set the expectation very, very clear and concise from day one. Like, this is a process. This is not going to be one of those, quick fix gimmicks. That's what we're working away from. And, some people aren't ready to meet you there. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I had to learn as a coach is that they're not going to be ready for it until they're ready for it.
Yeah, you can't make someone receive
You can bring the horse to water, but you can't make them drink,
yeah.
right? Like, that for me was so much of like the personal growth in this profession of like, okay, I'm not going to get them all right at the first conversation. But the conversation for me always goes, and I think I've said it before now, marathon, not a sprint. It takes time. And the only way that you're going to be able to see what the results that you're looking to see is when you slow down. So really setting that expectation from the jump of, and then I give exercises of how to slow down. I like to do, for people who are really struggling with it, I will do like mini guided meditations for them and just find some way that speaks to them. There's so many different ways that you can do these grounding exercises, whether, I don't know if you guys have since like find 5 things that you can see, 4 things you can, and I forget how it goes. So you can do that, just close your eyes and concentrate on your breath, which a lot of people find very difficult because the thoughts start to keep coming. Somebody, said to me once, and it's an analogy that I use very often of like, imagine your thoughts as a train just whizzing by. The train isn't stopping at your platform. You can see them, but they just keep going. Don't sit there and attach to one and dissect it and go through it. And that, ability to be able to just disconnect from your thoughts is often the biggest struggle for people in the sense of taking a breath and slowing down, because then that opens up the space of, okay, well, what else do I have to do? You don't have to do anything right now. And that is sometimes the hardest thing to do for people, because even when you're sitting down doing nothing, watching Netflix, you're on your phone, you're making a to-do list, you're, sending an email. Like, the ability to sit and truly just sit is a practice. And, every day it's going to feel a little bit different, whether it's easier, harder, the same, whatever the case is. So giving those senses of moments to breathe. I mentioned earlier, like that daily tracker that I use. So if I find that somebody is really struggling with finding the time in their day to slow down, we'll track it. And that accountability really ends up being helpful for a lot of people in being able to say, okay, I was able to set aside 5 minutes. We start small, 2 or 3 minutes, just sit and try it. And you start growing on that, and then we can change and we can add more and different kinds of exercises and different types of activities. There's things called moving meditations. So if you find that riding a bike is the space where you're able to just be with the road and with the bike and be there, then that's your space to be quiet. You know, you find that a lot with distance runners who just, you know, they say that they're able to just turn everything off and find their breath and their pace and their rhythm, and kudos to them. I'm not a runner. Shout outs to you distance runners, but you know, they're able to find that. So it's just really a matter of extracting people's past experiences, their current state of affairs in their life, their health, their, you know, their circumstance, and then being able to have an arsenal of tools in my handbook that I can try and pull from and help with that person. You know, I also have a huge network of people who share the certifications that I share, and we're, like we said before, super connected through Facebook and groups and whatnot. And there's constantly people saying, you know, I'm working with somebody who's having trouble with XYZ, who can help me? So, you know, there's a huge network of professionals out there, and we all help each other out and comment on each other's stuff and be able to really pull as a collective to help everybody. Which is awesome, because you're not going to be able to know everything that's going to help everybody. And being able to understand that and not be fearful or shameful of reaching out for help and assistance is huge as a professional in any profession. You know, as young people, I'm obviously, you know, I'm successful and I'm capable of what I'm doing, but there's also so much more for me to learn, and, you know, so much more space for me to grow. And every person that I work with is bringing me to another level in my career, just like I'm helping to bring them to a different space in their life. And I think when you go into something with the idea of, you know, we're going to be helping each other, as opposed to, like, granted, yes, there's a financial exchange, there's a time exchange, and you're essentially hiring me. We're a team, and we're a symbiotic relationship. And what you're giving to me, I'm taking and I'm learning from it, and I'm also going to give back to you what I'm learning in my experiences. So just being able to take something from everybody that I work with and build up my little toolbox behind me, so that when I work with somebody, I have something that I can give them to try and help them.
Sure.
Yeah, and one of the things that we're trying to communicate to people going through transformative phases is that there are so many people that you don't even realize are willing to help you.
Yeah,
and
so true.
Like, you will be so surprised if you just reach out how many people are willing to just come forward and help you.
And just have conversations.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether it's an actual, like, coaching relationship where you're hiring someone, or just a conversation, like you said, that you need to have with somebody. And people are so willing to help, and we've even found that right away with doing this. It's amazing the people that you reach out to that you're like, they'll never respond to me.
Yeah, and when
I'm
you come
just a
from
little
that
newcomer.
tone of, like, I need help, it's okay to ask for help. I think that's another thing, just being a New Yorker.
Put it on a billboard and, like, shout it from the rooftops.
Yeah. I think it's so great that our generation now is starting to realize that it's okay to ask for help. You don't have to have so much pride all the time and act like you know how to do everything, because everybody knows that you don't know what the heck you're doing.
I
like,
think
nobody
that's also
knows what they're doing.
I think that also comes with being in, like, your later 20s too. Like, I don't know, I feel like as an early 20s person, I was, especially because I had gotten engaged so early and gotten married so young, I was like, I got it.
Yeah.
No, I got it. I'm good. And, like, now I'm like, you didn't know what you were doing.
Yeah.
Stop pretending.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I just feel like it's
Getting
coming
older.
to light now for so many people. Like, everybody knows you're faking it. So, like, stop faking it.
Right.
Like,
And
if you're in your
just be real.
profession and, like, you're, like, working in your profession and you know something, like, if I don't know something on my tax return and I go to Katie, like, I'm gonna know and respect the fact that she's the expert. Like, when you're working with an expert, this obviously doesn't apply.
Right.
But, like, when it comes to your everyday life, just know that everyone's searching for more information, and that's what we're all here to provide each other with. Like, move
Just,
your
like, share
pride aside
experiences.
and
Right.
exactly share your experiences, help other people, and be mindful and willing to put your struggles out there, and your vulnerabilities will help so many other people get through different things in their life, whether they're at the same phase you're transitioning through or not.
Yeah.
It doesn't really make a difference, because we all navigate those things with, again, like you were saying before, those tools that we have in our toolboxes, and those tools can fix many different things.
Yeah.
So,
And at the end of the day, I mean, everyone in the world is on a team. We're all working together.
Yeah.
To
For
make
the greater
world
good.
run. Every single person
plays a role.
Yeah. There's no person that doesn't contribute to what society is and what the world is. Every single person has something to offer and something that they're doing that makes the world work.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Or makes one other person do something that they're doing. If you affect
such a
one other
domino
person,
effect. Right. Like if I empower you to do something in your life, and then you go ahead and you feel so empowered that you're able to empower 2 or 3 other people from that, and the train just continues along that path. Like we're gonna raise the collective of the world.
Yeah.
Just
so
by
overall
empowering
good
each
for
other.
everybody.
Right.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about intuitive eating and what you teach your clients about that? Because I feel like that's such a new concept to so many people. Like, what does that mean?
It is, and I fear for the intuitive eating concept only because it is being so widely broadcasted that it has the potential to fall down into that diet culture-y, toxic kind of space. But, you know, I think it means something different for everybody. So intuitively eating is what we were talking about earlier, of being able to listen to your body and what it wants, and listen to its cues and its demands. And, you know, if you want to have the pizza, you have the pizza. And that really is the crux of the intuitive eating movement, is being able to say, you know, whatever it is that my day of eating looks like is okay. But at the same time, you know, we do realize that, okay, we also have bodies that need certain things in order to function properly. You know, we need vitamins, we need minerals, we need the right amount of calories to keep ourselves healthy. So it's educating yourself to a point where you are conscious enough to make the right health decisions. So I understand that my body needs X amount of calories, you know, and what a balanced plate looks like with vegetables and carbohydrates and proteins and things like that. But also being able to say, you know, like some days it's going to look like a bagel or a bacon, egg, and cheese from the bagel store in the morning, you know, like there is no good or bad food. There is no right or wrong way. There's only the evolution of your connection with your body. And that, you know, different days are going to require different things. Different periods in your life are going to require different things from you. And for me, I think my experience with intuitive eating has been, and my experience with my clients with intuitive eating has been really just educating people about how nutrition works and what these things mean and how to, you know, look at food as food. You know, it's not inherently good or bad, morally good or not good. It's just food. And is it going to give me this sense of, you know, immediate joy followed by long-term unhappiness, or is it going to give me something that's going to make me, you know, I can't tell you how many people are lactose intolerant and still continue to eat dairy, and they're like, oh, my stomach will just hurt later. Like,
oh my gosh, yeah.
I mean, first of all, I'm guilty, right? Like, I definitely had pizza the other day. I'm incredibly lactose intolerant. I spent a huge portion of my day in the bathroom. But, you know, for me, in that moment, I was at my mom's house. It was really the only thing that they had to eat. And I was hungry. So, you know, at that point, in order to keep my relationship with food healthy, I decided to have a piece of pizza. For somebody else, they might really not want to sacrifice the next morning in the bathroom, so they would choose to not eat the pizza. So it's more or less learning the cues in your body and then being able to separate it from what you've been previously indoctrinated with when it comes to diet culture. And labeling foods as good or bad, or labeling periods in your life as on a diet or not on a diet, or watching what you eat or not watching what you eat. Wherever the verbiage is, you should always watch what you eat, right? Like, you should always be conscious of the fact, okay, like, am I eating enough vegetables? But not because I want to lose weight, because I know that my body needs vitamin B12 and, you know, C and all these different vitamins and minerals. And am I eating enough protein? Because I know that if I don't get enough protein, I probably start to get headaches later in the day, and I don't actually need that extra cup of coffee. I need something with protein in it.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's those observations, and that sometimes comes with food journaling at first to be able to understand how different foods relate to your emotions and relate to your body and its response. So if I have somebody who's really, really at the beginning steps of the intuitive eating journey, it usually starts with a food journal. Obviously dependent upon their, if they have a history of eating disorder, I'll normally partner with their psychiatric team to figure out if that's going to be a trigger for them or not. But for the most part, if they're pretty much in the clear that way, we start with a food journal along with a mood journal, and we compare the two. And we're able to really see the correlation between food, mood, and then even in some cases we'll do physical reaction. So, observe 2 hours after you eat. Do you have a headache? Does your stomach not feel well? Are you, rubbing your eyes? Are you sneezy? We're able to find kind of food allergies that way as well. And then they're able to start to reflect on that. And we have an exercise that I do where we put about 2 weeks worth of food, mood, and physical journals together, and I format them into kind of like an Excel spreadsheet of sorts. And you can see, and that for some people is just something they've never even seen before. The sense of my food affects everything in my life.
It gives them a new way to recognize it.
It gives them a new way to recognize. Okay, like I know from that experience that when I have, kashi at night, I sleep better because it gives me a sense of satiety without feeling a sense of heaviness. And for a lot of people, they want to go to sleep feeling full, but they don't want to wake up the next morning feeling like garbage. So it's like, just all of those continuous places of where can I change, where it's not feeling restrictive and it's not feeling hurtful to the emotional state and the psychological state, but it's helpful in the sense of a long-term picture.
How do you approach a client who has a hard time maintaining a food journal or a mood journal? Like, just, they're coming to you and they're like, oh, on this day I forgot to do it, or I missed writing down this meal, and they're just struggling to keep that regular journal that you need to analyze it.
Right. So the first thing I'll do with somebody like that is really just kind of sit with them and discuss, like, this is not something that is going to be easy, right? Like, this is a huge commitment. You're really trying to unearth and completely pivot your entire way of thinking from however many years in the past you've been thinking this way. So for me is, again, setting that expectation of, this is what's required of you to do this.
Are you
Granted,
really ready?
You're paying me, but are you wasting your money? Because, like, take it back. If you're not ready to sit here and show up, because I'm going to show up for you. I'm going to do my routine. Yeah. I'm going to be here. I'm going to I'm going to set my emotions aside and show up at the table for you. You need to be able to do the same. So for a lot of people, that sometimes is the conversation. And I think I said it before. Not everybody who I meet with is ready at that first conversation.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes people 2 and 3 times coming back to me before they're ready to really dig it up. And that is, again, something that in my professional growth was really hard. There was a lot of people who I worked with who were those people who would make excuses for not making the food journal and who would, cancel sessions 20 minutes beforehand. And granted, they're on their own path. I don't hate anybody for anything. So, they need to find their own way through their journey. But in order for you to be successful, you need to show up. So that's, and I don't mean to sound like a hard ass, but like, it's so true, because you're not going to be able to do anything productive without showing up. So that's usually how I'll handle somebody like that. I will, at the first time that happens, I will kind of sit with them and be like, what's going on? Right. Like, what is causing all of the not being able to do this? I find that when people who are engaged in, relationships with others, if the partner is unsupportive of the transition that this person is trying to go through, it makes it that much harder for them to really make space in their life for it. Kids can also really, tap into energies that you're feeling. So if you're trying to make a huge transition, a child picks up on that, and it can cause major unrest in the home, not sleeping, not eating, whatever the case is, tantrums, all the nonsense. That can also be a huge part of it as well. So for me, it's really like the first conversation is what's going on. And then,
is it that you're not ready, or is there something else that we
Right.
can address
Exactly.
that
exactly.
can help you move forward?
And, you know, sometimes they don't even realize that there's something going on outside of their excuses that they can, you know, better manage. And that's just, again, me building up my toolbox and having these kinds of conversations and learning from others and being able to say, listen, I had somebody try this. Why don't we do it this way? So, yeah. But it is, you have to be able to be ready to meet yourself where you are, look yourself in the face and say, we're making a change. And it's scary, and it's not going to happen. It might not happen on the first go around, but it's powerful once you're able to get there. So,
in closing out your segment on food and diet here, can you tell us a little bit about your mindful meal?
yes. So the mindful meal was something that was brought to me through my yoga teacher training. It was something that we were challenged to do through our teacher training program once a day. So the mindful meal consists of 5 different rules. So the rules for the mindful meal, number 1 is when you sit down with your food to take 3 breaths, close your eyes, and express gratitude for the food that you're about to eat. So much, and this comes back to, you know, this fast-paced society. We eat while we're standing up. We move around. We are on the phone. We have conversations. So step 1 is just to really make space for your meal. Rule number 2 is sitting down. That's huge. Sit while you eat. Be there with your food. Enjoy the moment. Number 3 is no conversations while you're chewing. Which, granted, we all probably learned from a very young age, like, don't talk with your mouth full. But, you know, I challenge everybody not only just to try the mindful meal, but this one in particular, notice how often you just kind of like shove food over to the side of your mouth and still start to talk. Granted, nobody's seeing it, but it's still there. That, for me, was a big takeaway from this exercise, and now it's something that I give to all of my clients to do. So, rule number 3, no conversation while you're chewing. Rule number 4 is no distractions. So, phone off, TV off, music off, you know, don't read a book, the newspaper. Granted, if your kids are there, they're a distraction. Sometimes that's just life. But really try and limit the distractions while you're eating and be present and arrive at your meal. And then rule number 5 is every time that you, whether you're eating something with your hand or eating something with a utensil, you put your utensil down in between each bite. Chew your food, swallow it, and then pick up another forkful or another spoonful or another handful of what you're going to eat. And that, in and of itself, when I introduce that to clients, it brings up a sense of empowerment because they'll fill their plate with something. They sit, they show the gratitude, there's no distraction, they're present with their meal, and you know, I would say probably a good 85-90% of the people who do this exercise for the first time eat way less than they put on their plate. And if they wouldn't have been following these mindful meal rules, they probably would have just shoveled the whole thing in, right? Or had the conversation and just mindlessly ate. Like, how many of us have actually sat in front of the TV and mindlessly eaten like a cracker or a popcorn or a snack?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody. You're lying if you say that you haven't.
Exactly.
So, you know, for instance, I have a client who mindlessly snacks around the 2:30, 3 o'clock hour at work. So part of our relationship is that she does mindful snacking. So it's the same rules that apply. She leaves her desk. She sits down with her snack and enjoys the snack that she's about to have. And over the past week now, when we've obviously I introduced the mindful meal to every client that I work with, but when we really dug up her journey and her process, it was the snack time that was really being counterproductive to what we were doing. So I said, let's do a mindful snack. A week later, and she's already feeling empowered and grateful and all these other emotions around the snack that she gets midday. And it's not mindless, which not only then, and for her goals is to lose weight, reduces the calories that she's consuming, but it also fuels her with a sense of accomplishment in the middle of her day to now go home and tackle the rest of her day and have another mindful meal if that's the one that she chooses. So, like I said, when I was first introduced to the mindful meal, it made a huge difference in my life in being able to understand my hunger cues. And I think that's something that really is the biggest part of what I do, is teaching people their hunger cues and how to recognize what their body is looking for. Not so much. Okay, I feel like I'm a little bit hungry. Just open the fridge and pick something.
Yeah.
Think about it. What are you really looking for? You know, are you looking for something savory or sweet, or, you know, a salad, or, you know, something a little bit heavier, and finding all those different components and those different properties to food to really connect with.
Sure. Yeah, that goes right back to like the whole concept of intuitive eating and trying to recognize what it is that you're trying to fuel by eating whatever it is you're about to put in your mouth.
Yeah.
So that's great.
It's I know, you know, I tried it when I first was introduced to it, to bring it to Thanksgiving one year.
Wow.
And I said, let's try this. And I do a very small Thanksgiving. It's just, you know, my parents, my sister, me, and my husband. And it was hysterical how difficult it was. You know, we're a big-mouthed Italian family. Everybody talks over each other. We're yelling. Even with only the 5 of us, it's still like that. And it just made me think of how many of my clients deal with this on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And how important this and that's when I really kind of decided, okay, this needs to be part of my model, and, you know, every person that I work with, because who knows what their dinner table looks like. And I give them the option, you know, pick a meal in your day and make it that.
Right.
You know, I, at this point in my life, and after connecting with this process for so long, it's, for me, primarily breakfast and dinner. But that's just because of habit. For most people, it ends up being about one meal a day, and it's generally dinner. And it sets them up to really feel connected with their evening, which then in turn, you know, again, how many people can say that once dinner's over and it starts to hit that evening time that you just want to snack
away?
Snack away, exactly, yeah. And so if you feel empowered from dinner and this mindfulness that sets in, you're able to just kind of go into every other part of your day and feel powerful. And that, I think, is really part of the root of everything here, is feel powerful in knowing what your body wants, in making the choices that make that so, and, you know, having pride in the fact that you're able to make these choices.
Thank you so much today, Kat, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It was such a pleasure chatting with you. I'm so excited to watch you continue your journey and succeed with all these amazing people you're going to connect with.
Same with you guys. I'm so excited for this journey for you. I think it's really going to touch so many people, and I'm just so excited to be part of it. So thank you again for having me.